Good afternoon again, and welcome to the TRiM Technology-Based Risk and Insurance Management webinar featuring Telesystems. A few things. We will send a follow-up email with a recording of the webinar. We'll send a PowerPoint presentation and then introduce Telesystems, their services, and the Trust Bundle. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So as you know, Stuckey and Company is a national wholesale broker, specialty MGA, managing general agent. We've been in business 33 years. In 2024, Stucky is celebrating 33 years as an MGA. And we have 62 carriers. Here's a printout. We use this as a poster that we can offer our insurance agents to post in their locations. Some of the ways that we differentiate ourselves, we have what's called a 151 promise, which is any service request or quote request that we get in by 1, we get out by 5. If it gets in by 5, we get it out by 1 the next day. We give you a single point of contact to kind of navigate the agency and the carriers we represent. And we also have some marketing campaigns that we can turn on for you to generate some leads for our product. It looks like most of you, I know some of you that are on, and most of you know that our departments are commercial lines, so BOP, comp, auto, bonds, EPLI, D&O, inland marine, ocean marine, all of those types of things. Personal lines, professional liability, and surplus lines. And we also have a product called SEEDS, which stands for Stucky's Enterprise and Education Solution, which is coverage for the digital devices, mainly in schools. Today we're talking about our TRiM product, which again is a technology-based risk and insurance management platform, basically designed to give policyholders premium credits for the tools that they deploy. And those tools are managed security services for cyber liability. So it's a tech product, and we position it to give premium credits for a particular coverage. Today, it's managed security services for cyber liability, IoT for business owners policies, again, protection for digital devices for inland marine coverage. We have a tool that gives AI risk assessments for workers' compensation that lets people know if they're lifting a box wrong in a distribution center, for example. And then we have a telematics solution for auto, commercial auto insurance specifically. So let me turn it over to Jen. I'd like to introduce Jen and her team at Telesystems. Jen Arnold is Regional Channel Manager for Telesystems. Scott Chili is Senior Manager and Cybersecurity Consultant at Telesystems. And Sean Nace is Manager Sales Engineer at Telesystems. And I'd like to thank them for being here, presenting, and making themselves available for questions during and after the webinar. So.
Hey, I'm sharing my screen. Can everyone see it?
Yep.
Yeah. Perfect. So yeah. Thanks Dwight for having us. I am Jen Arnold. I'm the Regional Channel Manager here at Telesystem, and I'm just going to tell you a few things about who we are, and then I'm going to kick it over to Scott Chili so he can get into the good stuff about cybersecurity. So It's just our agenda, what we're going to cover today. So who is Telesystems? So we've been around since 1994, so we're not new. We're owned by a media conglomerate by the name of Block Communications. Block owns several telecom companies like us. They own Buckeye Broadband in Ohio, and they own Max South down in Mississippi and Alabama. They own TV stations around the country, and they own newspapers. We have our own network, so we have our own backbone. We have 7,000 miles of regionalized fiber. I'm just going to jump to this slide because I like to show you why I'm talking about it. So this is our network. It is supported by a 100 gig pop-to-pop nationwide network. We have 40 pops across the country. Those are the green dots that you see to carry your traffic. We have 100 NNIs connected, and that just means that we're connected to all the carriers, the AT&Ts, the Verizons, and the Spectrum and the Cox and so forth. We have 3 privately owned data centers. Those are the stars. And that just means that we can do co-location products as well. So I'm not going to go through this slide entirely, but you can see that we are a managed solutions provider. So we can do voice, we can do networking, and today we're going to be talking about cybersecurity. But as you can see, we have a large portfolio of product. We can bundle all of this on one invoice. We are 100% US-based customer support. We answer calls within 20 seconds. We don't have an IVR, so we are live human beings that take those calls. We have a customer portal that we give our customers access to. We try to empower them to where they can open tickets, they can open billing tickets, they can own travel tickets, they can see their inventory, they can pay their bill. So we try to make life as easy as possible for our customers. Now I'm going to kick it over to Scott Chili.
So you guys are obviously already in the insurance industry, right? So you guys, you all see what those requirements are, right? For cyber liability insurance, for cybersecurity insurance, and that sort of thing, with the different carriers, the different underwriters that are providing this insurance, right? So we've kind of compiled a laundry list of things that we've seen. Now, all policies obviously are different, but we understand that as customers are trying to get this insurance secured, they have some hurdles they have to overcome and achieve, right? So again, from security awareness training right on down, they kind of get a little bit more complex as it kind of goes along, and so we'll talk about each of these briefly. I know we've got a limited time here, and I won't bore you with death by PowerPoint, but we'll just kind of cycle through a number of these. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll try and save some time. So let's jump to the next one there, Jen. So we'll talk about security awareness training. Really, so we like to keep people on the preventative side, right? We don't want them to get over onto the hey, I've had an incident, because then they're going to have all that expense of remediating that, and then they got to go back and plug the holes. One of the holes that we typically see is with security awareness from the employees, right? That human firewall. That's the easiest avenue for people to get compromised, and we take that very seriously. That the employees need to be trained, and they need to be trained properly and continuously. And I know some employers might say, oh, I don't have time for continuous training. They don't have time not to. And by continuous training, we're talking about maybe 5 minutes total, right? It's we take one topic and we provide it in a 2 to 3 minute video with a few true false questions to reinforce that and keep it top of mind awareness. And it happens weekly. And that's probably the most valuable piece of our awareness training product, combined with some dark web monitoring. So we're out there scouring the dark web for any exposures that employer may have with their email domain. We provide them policies right out of the box. So we're starting to check the boxes for them and help them, improve their overall posture. And that's what all of these things are really meant to do. Let's go to the next one. So we've got a security awareness. We have a bundle, a trust bundle, and we make it easy for folks to start their path with these top 3 pieces, right? So the security awareness training I just talked about. We do essential endpoint protection, which is merely application whitelisting, application allow listing, right? What is an application allowed to do that's running on your computer? Can it, if I open up a PDF document, can Adobe then reach out to PowerShell or a command line or some sort of script? Can it reach out to the internet and download some badness or establish a remote access connection from a bad actor, right? The essential endpoint protection will say, no, you don't have the permission or the ability to do that. We keep you in your swim lane. And all Microsoft products stay in their swim lane. Everything, it knows what it can do, and it says anything beyond that, you can't do. So we reduce that attack surface. And then email filtering, right? We have to have some sort of protection on email because, again, that's probably one of the easiest vectors for a bad actor to send in and get around the firewalls, the antivirus that they have. It's easy to throw something over the fence and just allow, the end user then basically opens the door and allows the bad guy right into the house, right? So so we bundle those together. We try and make it very easy for your clients to consume and start their level of protection if they, if they're new to all of this. But further, let's go to the next slide. If they already have those, right, and they've already kind of started, then sorry. This is everything that essential endpoint protection comes with. It's a helpful tool, right? That whitelisting policy is really probably where the rubber meets the road. And I'd say let's go to the next slide. And there we go. I talked about email filtering already, right? But again, from an email filtering standpoint, we just redirect that email through our cloud filter so that it doesn't, the stuff gets filtered out ahead of time, right? What we're trying to really reduce that attack surface. We also have email encryption, so if they're dealing with maybe secure information that they have to transfer out to a third party, they can encrypt it before it leaves their organization and get it delivered to their third party, right, or their customers or what have you. So we can protect them on the inside coming in, protect them on the outside as it's going out, and that type of thing. And then I would say as we jump further, after those pieces get put in place, then we start saying, okay, what's the next level of protections that people need, right? And again, going back to that cyber insurance, cyber liability insurance checklist, multi-factor authentication. That is probably hands down one of the more critical things that people need to have. And you say, ooh, multi-factor authentication, how does that work? Well, we can play this little video. Jenna, can you hover over that? There's a little video here, and I'll just talk about it. But it's really it's a simple process. You probably have all done it for Office 365. You basically go to log in, and it prompts you and says, hey, open up your device. We use Duo in this case. Open up your device, and verify this is actually you, right? So now we jump into not only something you know, but something you have. It gets approved. You can trust the browser or not, and there you go. So that slows down, again, some of that attack vector, right? So if I am a criminal, and you do have exposure out there on the dark web, and I find those credentials and I go to try and use them, this is another piece that's going to stop me, because now I don't have that capability of completing the login to be able to change that password, right? I have to have this second factor. Now, Can this be gotten around? Yes, it can, but it's another rate limiting step, and it's a little more challenging to get around something like this. And it's certainly better to have it than certainly to not have it. So, so then if we move down, let's say I was actually able to get onto your system as a bad actor. So I'm a white hat hacker, so that means I'm one of the good guys, and I emulate the bad guys when people hire us to test their systems, right? Test their security. If I can get to that critical data that the client has, the customer has, whatever it is, whether it's patient information, whether it's credit card information, maybe some secret patent that they're working on, right? Some sort of an intellectual property, whatever it is. If I can get to that data and send it out of the organization, and I have a copy of that, then I won, right? I will win on the ransomware sort of game. They will pay the ransom to get that information back and for it not to go public. But let's suppose they took a proactive step like this and they encrypted that data, and they've got backups of that data so that even if I try and destroy it, they can recover it. And even if I captured it, it's encrypted, so I can't really do anything with it. There we go. There's another step that they have put in place where they are no longer a victim, right, of cybercrime. They're not going to be putting in any sort of a claim needing help for business continuity because they're able to get their production environment back up and running. And so that's where the data backups, the recovery, that kind of capability. How long of a downtime are they going to experience, and who has to pay to kind of keep them going, right? So they don't close their business, right? So we see that a lot with insurance and saying, hey, no, you need to make sure that your downtime is very, very short because we're only going to pay for a day or two, right, or 5 or whatever the insurance underwriter comes up with. And so we know that people need to do, they need to do well. So moving on. So then they also need to have a robust firewall. Can't be just something that you find at Best Buy, something built into their wireless router. We see that a lot in mom and pop shops. They're very small. As they start getting into the medium size, the enterprise, they need an enterprise class device, a higher level device. We can provide those features. We can even host that for them. We can manage it for them so that we can make sure that it's patched and tuned properly and that sort of thing, and it doesn't leave them exposed. So that's just one of those critical things. Moving on, after they have all of these pieces, now we start getting into the fun stuff, right? So vulnerability management. And you say, what's that? Just think, so every month, Microsoft comes out with their list of patches and the things that they need to fix. And so they're correcting and dealing with vulnerable software, and they're finding the fixes for it and that sort of thing. We take it a step further, not just applying those patches, but also looking at how the network is configured. Maybe they have open ports on their firewall that should be closed down. Maybe they have weak password policies, a plethora of things that we can go through and continuously scan and monitor that environment month over month. And if, what we typically see in this regard is somebody's implementing a new software, they need to relax some restrictions to get that software to work. But then after they get it working, sometimes they don't go back and actually close those things back up, or they leave things wide open. So they're kind of leaving the back door open, and it becomes kind of a problem. So then we would come back through and scan and say, hey, something's changed from last month to this month. You have a lot more of exposure. And they say, oh, we've got to go back and fix that. So, so that's what we talk about when we talk about vulnerability management, where we're really trying to help those customers keep themselves as secure as possible and not having a false sense of assurance that they're protected. Okay, let's, yep. So you look at this and say, okay, what is SIM as a service? This is security event and incident management. Security incident and event management. It's basically a fancy way of saying, I'm going to collect all the log data of everything that's going on the network, from my switching hardware, my router, my external firewall, my endpoints, my servers, my wireless. I'm going to aggregate all that information together and start seeing what kind of issues we're having, right? What kind of potential attacks are out there? Maybe somebody got on and did something, and I'm not really sure. But this is where this kind of a tool will start looking at that kind of activity. It'll map it against like the MITRE attack framework, which really basically just says, here's what bad actors do, here's how they do their thing. And it's mapped hundreds of different attack vectors. And so your SIM tool will find those things and say, hey, there's some correlation here. We have these kind of indicators. We need to investigate, right? Sends an alert to the on-site customer team, sends an alert to us, sends an alert to their security operations center to dig in and say, whoa, we've got an issue. We need to remediate this because this is an indicator that we've got bad stuff going on in the network. A couple more, and I'll leave it open for questions. I know we're getting close on time here. Security Operations Center, again, this is just having a team with eyes on glass. Somebody, when your IT guys are basically at home, you know, evenings, weekends, holidays, right? They need time off. They're not sitting there staring at a console. You've got that sort of insurance policy, if you will. You've got that backup team that's keeping an eye on things and making sure. It's like having a security guard at night. You know, kind of keep making sure nobody's breaking in while everybody's out of the building. Same type of thing, just on the network. Let's jump down to this last period. So risk assessments. Again, we can get a nice idea, a survey of the landscape of where they're at. That's a good starting point for some folks to say, well, I don't really know what I've got. I don't know where my exposure is. A lot of times they'll hear that they need a pen test, and I'll talk about that in a second here. If they don't have a cybersecurity program or a number of tools in place already, a pen test is not going to be very valuable for them. A risk assessment would be good for them to start. It's a little less invasive, lower cost, but still provides a wealth of value. Speaking of pen testing, though, on the next slide, if they have a number of these things in place already, they're doing their encrypted backups, they've got their email filtering, they've got it all. Now they kind of want to see, okay, where are the potential holes in my layers of defense in depth? You know, can a bad actor get through the different pieces of defenses that I have and still compromise me? That's where we would come in and do one of these. We would emulate a bad actor. We try a number of exploits. It's very invasive. You can see the risk level increases as we go from left to right. You know, we're potentially taking systems down. We are, you know, extracting information out, or demonstrating that we can. And again, they get a good visibility of what their exposure would look like. So then they can go back and say, okay, obviously we don't have complete overlapping coverage here, so we need to shore that up and close it up. And I think that's everything. Do we have time? We have time for questions here. I know we have a few minutes. If anybody has anything that's not clear, I can re-explain. Sean, I didn't give you a chance to chat.
Well, I'll jump in. We have just a couple of questions. Okay. So first one from me, and with Claris, for example, we offer a dark web report to kind of, the people, the participants, the attendees on the call are, licensed insurance agents, and a lot of the times they're coming to the agent asking for coverage.
Yeah.
But there's also an element of selling, making sure that they know, why people should carry professional liability or cyber liability. And one of the things I think it was cool is the dark web report that you guys gave. Is
Yeah.
that still available? Can we still run a dark web report?
Sure we
Absolutely.
can. Yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, if you have a customer you're working with and you say, hey, I can run a dark web scan for you, get their email domain and their company name, send it over to us. We will run that for you, provide a nice PDF, show them where they have some exposure potentially if they have leaked credentials out there online. One thing we know is people tend to reuse passwords. And so they'll see, oh boy, this person got compromised here, 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 and here. Maybe they're reusing that same password, and hopefully they're not using the same one for the internal network, but that's always an option, right? People do that. And so that kind of is a nice lead into, well, you have exposure, you need probably some shoring up on your security awareness training. And so hand in glove, boom, that's where a lot of folks get started.
Right on. Yeah. And how's that report compared to like a risk assessment and like penetration testing and all that type of thing?
Yeah. So that's just, you have the potential for exposure out there. A risk assessment says, hey, let's look at your network. We'll send a device to them. They plug it into the network. We run a number of tools, and we kind of get a state of what is. And like I said, that's typically if they're starting out on their journey and they're not really sure where to start. We can find some things that are high value for them and probably low, easy fixes, right? Quick wins. Penetration testing is then on that further extreme after they've done a lot of things, they've got a lot of things closed up, and now they're kind of saying, okay, we've invested heavily in a number of tools. We are doing all the things that we need to do. Now let's bring in a pen test and see, do we have gaps? As small as they may be, where are the gaps? So you kind of got the appetizer, right? You've got the salad course being your so the appetizer being your dark web, the salad course being your your cybersecurity assessment. Hey, where are we going to get started on some things? And then as they become more mature, then they're positioned and ready for a pen test.
Okay, and so can somebody that has already been hacked kind of use Telesystems as a way to manage the incident, maybe even if they don't have insurance at all?
Yes, we do have some incident response service capabilities. We have a limited team, right? So we may not be readily available, but we try and help wherever we possibly can. Because when people are down, they're down and they need help. So even if we can't help, we might have a third party that we can refer them to that we would trust and help them get back on their feet, right? Because at the time they're dead in the water. So yeah.
And I mean, we're out of time, and thank you so much. But one last question: a process for onboarding. Does that normally kind of start with a meeting with one of you or kind of a subject matter expert doing a consultation, and what's that look like?
Yeah, Jen,
they can reach out to you, and then we could set up a call with all of us here on a call, and then the customer can walk us through their needs. Are they looking for an assessment? Have they been hacked and they need what do they need? So a conference call would be the first step.
Right on. Okay. Kind of a meeting with the stakeholders.
Yep.
Kind of who they are, what they do, kind of who they do it for, timeline.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then once we determine, what the issue is or what products we think they need, if they want to do an assessment, we would overnight that device. They could plug it into their equipment. It would take about a day for us to download what we need from the device. And then Scott needs a day to put the presentation together. And we make recommendations about on day 4 or day 5.
Right on. Okay. Well,
Okay.
man, Jen, Scott, Sean, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys presenting, and thanks for everybody for attending. And I'll send out the follow-up email probably tomorrow morning with a PowerPoint as a presentation. The presentation is a PowerPoint, appetite guide, and product sheets for Telesystems. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.